Okay, come here real quick. They found the employee who was a supervisor who was feeding your Social Security information, funds, your agency to people outside of the SSA in order to create fake benefit systems to pay for people that did not exist, to people who fraudulently received the funds and then shared some of those funds with this Social Security manager or managing person. So the big question is, can you trust Social Security employees? Sometimes. Sometimes. But not always. Not always. All right. Straight from the Office of Inspector General, hot sheet specifically, here it is. Released June 5th, 2025. Social Security employee pleads guilty to multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Houston. A former Social Security employee has admitted to conspiracy and aggravated identity theft, announced U.S. Attorney Nicholas J. Ganji. Okay. Now, remember how I kept saying to you guys over and over, I don't get it. I don't get how all these criminals out there are getting all these real Social Security numbers of people who have passed away but are still alive. Like, I don't get it. I don't get how they get this information to be able to fraud the government this efficiently. So, well, here's who did it. One of them. And then you'll have people in this video who will be like, those shouldn't be able to audit. They're not going to find anything. His name, David Lamb, 45, Pearland, was an operations supervisor and claims specialist for the Social Security Administration office in Houston. As part of his plea, Lamb admitted to stealing the personally identifying information of recently deceased men and then using the PII to facilitate fraudulent benefit applications. Lamb admitted to working with various co-conspirators who were typically women with children to file fraudulent survivor benefit applications listing the deceased men as the children's fathers or stepfathers. If true, this would have entitled the women to receive benefits while raising their children as widows. However, the women had no connection to the men listed on the application, and the deceased men did not father the children. Starting to see the fraud. To facilitate his scheme, Lamb would utilize the deceased men's names, dates of birth and death, and Social Security numbers. This is an actual SSA supervisor. This is a guy who literally had full access to look up people who might have died or found something and it was never reported, and then link this stuff together with women outside of it to get kid payments paid as survivors' benefits that he would get a cut from. He would also instruct the co-conspirators to split the stolen funds with him. The women would transfer funds via applications like Zelle, Cash App, or Chime. Lamb agreed to take responsibility for causing $3,346,280 in loss to the SSA and has agreed to pay that amount in restitution. How the hell is this guy ever going to be able to get $3.3 million? I don't have that. I don't see how he's going to do that. U.S. District Judge Sim Lake will impose sentencing September 12th. At that time, Lamb faces up to 5 years in federal prison for conspiracy to defraud the United States on the conspiracy charge and a $250,000 maximum fine. He will also face 2 years for aggravated identity theft, which must run consecutively to any sentence imposed. 7 years, but probably out earlier. $250,000 in fine, $3.3 million in restitution. The SSA Office of Inspector General conducted the investigation. Assistant U.S. Attorney Brad Gray is prosecuting the case. Here's the thing. Okay? An SSA employee who'd been working there a long time, who became a supervisor in one of the largest branch locations. Okay. There's a YouTuber who has a similar background to this. Defrauded you out of your trust fund money, because remember, a lot of those benefits are Title II. They're coming from like the same pot as the retirement benefits. $3.3+ million. He would find women with kids, convince them to file based off of information he pulled from the SSA's personnel system, the people who are alive or dead receiving Social Security benefits. To be clear, when Doge was saying people who have died are receiving benefits, and then everybody would say, no, they're not. Barely any. Nah, come on. What you need to realize is that these people who had already passed had benefits being paid to survivors and widows, known as the mom and the kids, which means they were receiving benefits even though they had already passed. And there were real employees. Because remember, there's no way he did this alone. There's no way all this shit came down and he did it alone. There's just no way. There's no way. Real employees at the SSA in managerial positions, he was a supervisor, fed Social Security information to women who could file for benefits related to the Title II benefits of the deceased person that he would then mark as deceased. And we remember, we don't have the full story here. I have to be able to get the full case law on this thing. I mean, it could have been more than this. It could have been, people who passed away or didn't pass away, or he didn't mark them as passed away and he, moved the funds around, whatever. But the thing here is he found women, negotiated with them to get them to split the funds and get those payments going to them for somebody who had passed away. That's something. I remember too, I was bitching for a long time because I felt like there were people in the SSA doing this stuff. And we had a couple cases. Where they were doing things similar to this. Okay. I think it was actually Texas again. But basically what happened in that one, there was a female specialist employee, and she basically was creating kids inside the system and then paying those payments to accounts. And then she would take those account payments, put them through a couple other accounts, and then PayPal the money to herself. I do not know how many Social Security employees are currently or have been abusing your information and the trust funds and the money that you pay in every time you pay taxes from earned income. I don't know. The government, Office of Inspector General, the Social Security Administration, the Department of Justice, Donald Trump himself do not know how many people are basically frauding the system. Do you see why? Do you see why it's important to audit this incredibly important administration? The Social Security Administration is the most socialist program for Americans that exists. And it's a great one because it keeps people basically from becoming completely impoverished, although the money doesn't go that far nowadays, but becoming completely impoverished in their disabled or elderly days. I cannot think of a higher calling than to help those who cannot work. And then the retired cannot work / shouldn't have to work. So my point to you is they got the person. They found him. We need to let them audit the entire system. We need to let them find all the fraudsters, because every child that is receiving a check that shouldn't be, every parent that is receiving a check that shouldn't be as a false widow. Every immigrant receiving a check that they shouldn't through supplemental security income. Every disabled person who's not truly disabled. Every retired person who, somehow managed to change their age inside their system, which I'm sure that's going to pop out at some point too. You came from this country, now you're here, you've been here for this many years. Well, how old are you? Well, this country says you're this. Well, that country was manipulated, and now you're 10 years older than you actually are, and you get a check every month. I'm sure there's some of that going on too. This is the Rosetta Stone situation, where we are seeing literal Social Security managerial level employees frauding the system from inside it. So when you say there's no fraud at the SSA, you're wrong. When you say that 1% or less than 1% is not that much fraud, the program pays out like $1.5 trillion a year. Do you know what $1.5 trillion a year would equate to at 1%? That's a lot of money. That is a massive amount of money. They've been working with the Social Security Administration to make it a very private and protected agency since the 1930s. How in the hell do they not have this shit on lockdown? 1930s they've been trying to get this right. Unless there's high-level fraud going on inside it. We know that there is, but we don't know how high it goes. But we do know that when you control Social Security numbers, you control voting, you control bank loans, you control house loans, you control car loans, you control opening bank accounts, you control all of that. SSA employee David Lamb, 45 years old, Pearland, operations supervisor, claims specialist, Houston, stole personally identifiable information of people who passed away, gave it to women with kids, set them up as survivors and widows, and then took half of that money. Disgusting. Absolutely shameful. Not good. Because remember, Social Security that you pay into, you don't have a choice on it. A Ponzi scheme, you get to decide if you're going to invest in something, then you find out later it's fraud. It's a sham. Not Social Security. You are born in America with the requirement to pay into those trust funds with your earned income. That's not how it goes for those Ponzi schemes. You're not born into a system that forces you to pay it. So the bottom line here is there are a lot of fraudsters. They need to audit the SSA. It is absolutely necessary. And they need the programs to better identify this shit because it's not doing what it needs to do. All right. With that said, if you like this information where you get to learn about what's going on, please remember to hit the like button. Please remember to subscribe. Also, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays, but I'm going to go live tonight and answer questions for free to the general public in the next video. So I'm going to put the link in the chat section if you want to go ahead and link to that next video. Also in the bio area, there's a mini contract for a private hour. If you want to hire me for a private hour to just figure something out related to your Social Security benefits, that's in the bio below. I'll catch you at the next video. Give me about 3 to 5 minutes to get set up. We'll rock and roll from there. I'll put the link in the chat. Thank you so much. Attorney Walter Hnot, the most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on disability attorney in America. I'll catch you at the next video, and I'll answer questions for free. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.